Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Curtis, and today I'm going to do a review for The Oval Season 6, Episode 11. So, the episode starts off where the last one left off. That was with Richard getting arrested for putting his hands on Nancy and also for allegedly stabbing his father. And speaking of Nancy, she does rush out and she starts yelling and screaming that he put his hands on her and that he killed his father. And so Sam, he's just like, can you please be quiet before the neighbors hear? She's like, I don't give a fuck if they hear. They need to know this information. He is a woman beater, and he also stabbed and killed his father. Like, they need to know. Sam looks over at Sharon, and he asks her if she can take Nancy inside. And Sharon was like, first of all, I cannot tell her what to do. Like, I can ask her nicely if she can go inside. I can tell her that she needs to go inside. But we all know that she is not going to go inside. She's not going to listen to me. Like, come on out. You know how she is. And so Sam was just like, yeah, I can see how she is. So he decides to redirect his attention back over to her. And he's like, you know what, Sharon, you were not being yourself. You were acting out. And she was like, not being myself, acting out. First of all, you do not know me. He was like, I do know you. She was like, no, you don't. He was like, yes, I do. And she was just like, oh, so you know me like you know Priscilla? You know me like you know the first lady? You're fucking the first lady, right? And he was just like, Nancy. She was like, oh, I didn't say it loud enough. Do I need to say it louder? And he was like, you know what? I don't have time for this. I'm going to leave. She was like, good, you should leave. That'll give you more time to go fuck the first lady again. And I was just like, well, damn. Sam walks off, so Nancy, she does turn around. She looks at Sharon. And then also, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but Dale was outside as well. And she says, stay right here. I'm going to go inside, get my purse. And when I come out, all three of us are going to go to the station so we can tell the detectives what he did. In the next scene, we see Victoria. She is laying out on the bed when she receives a call from Donald, who says that he needs to talk to her. He needs to talk to her right now. He was like, where are you at? She says, I'm in the guest room. So it's like, okay, can I come in? She says, yes. And so he rushes in. He's like, look, I got something I need to tell you. Hunter knows that you and Eli were having an affair. And she was just like, okay, and? Donald was just like, wait a minute. I just told you that Hunter knows that you and Eli were fucking, and you do not have an issue with that. You don't see a problem with that. Like, you're not concerned. She was like, no. He was like, why are you not concerned? She was like, because I still have my father. He was like, your father? She's like, yes, I have my father. He was like, well, when it comes to your father, where has he been in the last 12 hours? She was like, well, he would have been here if I would have called him, but I didn't call him because you all claim that you will be able to handle it, so I feel like there will be no need for me to call him. This is when Donald started playing mind games. He was like, you know what? You should call your father. Call him. And she was just like, wait a minute. So you just had a conversation with Eli. Now you are coming into my room and you're telling me to call my father. Are you telling me that you and Eli cannot handle this situation? And because you cannot handle this situation, you want me to call my father to take care of it? Is that what you were saying? Are you telling me that you two are scared? Donald shakes his head, and Victoria's just like, you know what? I told Eli to let me handle this from the beginning. If you would allow me to handle this from the beginning, none of this would have happened. And then she brings up the fact that Eli keeps calling her. And Donald's like, well, he's probably calling you to warn you that Hunter knows that you two were fucking. And once again, she's like, okay, and I do not care. He is just like, how can you be so calm right now? Not just about the affair being exposed, but also with everything that's happened in general. And she's like, well, the reason why I could be so calm is because regardless of what happens with you, what happens with Eli, what happens with Hunter, I'm still going to be the queen bee. I'm still going to be on top. This does not affect me. It affects you all. I'm going to be good regardless. Like, this is something that affects you, not me. And he's like, oh my God, you were fucking impossible to talk to, fucking impossible to deal with. I don't even know why I'm even having this conversation with you. The two of them, they go back and forth for a little while longer, and then Victoria eventually says, you know what, I'm sick of this shit. I'm tired of everything that's going on. What I'm going to do, I'm going to reach out to my father, and I'm going to have him handle it, since clearly you and Eli can't. And Don was like, yeah, you know what, you do that. And then he walks out. We go back to the house, and we see that Sam has made his way back over, and he's still trying to convince Nancy not to go to the station. And Nancy's just like, look, I want to do what the fuck it is I want to do. There's nothing that you can tell me. And then he's just like, listen to me. If you go to the station, it's not going to end well for you. And she's like, listen to me. I don't give a fuck about nothing that you were saying. I'm going to the station. I'm going to let them know that he put his hands on me and that he stabbed his father. So what you can do is get the fuck out of my face and leave me alone. Sam realizes at this point that he is not going to get through to Nancy, so he turns around, he looks at Dale, he's like, Dale, let me have a conversation with you. Nancy's like, don't you dare talk to him. He was like, Nancy, if you don't shut the fuck up and let me talk to this man. And so Dale was just like, listen to me, I don't want anything to do with this, I don't want to get involved. He was like, come on, man, let me just have a little conversation with you. He's like, listen, I don't want to get involved. And then next thing you know, Sam gets bucked. He's like, what the fuck you mean you don't want to talk to me? I said, wait a minute, Sam. But then I thought about it. I was like, Sam is probably frustrated. He probably wants to put his hands on Nancy, but Nancy is a woman, so he can't do that. But when it comes to Dale, he's a grown ass man. So he's like, bro, I will fuck you up. What the fuck you mean you don't want to talk to me? Dale was just like, listen, I'm sorry. I do not want to be involved. And Sam was like, okay, all right, that's fine. You know what? I'm going to leave, but before I do, I just want to say something. Dale, look at your phone. And then he walks out. And so Dale, he pulls his phone out of his pocket. He looks real quick, then he puts it back into his pocket. Nancy's like, what did he send? He was like, oh, nothing. And then Nancy's like, okay, cool. And then she walks out of the room. And so Sharon, of course, she knows that something actually happened. So she's like, what did he send? He was like, nothing. And she was like, Dale, what did he send? And then he was like, he actually sent me a picture of the guy that killed my parents. And apparently this guy's been looking for me because he wants to finish a job. So Sharon was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, have you spoken to the authorities? And he was like, and what are they going to do? She was like, I don't know, possibly help. And he was like, you know what? I don't want anything to do with this. I do not want to be involved. I'm going to leave. She was like, you cannot just keep running away from your problems. He was like, listen, running is what I do. That's just what I'm good at. And then he ends up leaving. All right, so we are now going back to the White House. So we see Simone and Eli. They are inside of Eli's office. And Simone is like, I just want to confirm that you are going to have the strike squad come to the White House, right? And so in the last episode, they were just talking about the National Guard. So I'm just going to assume that maybe they work together. Maybe that's like a secondary name. I'm not sure. But in the last episode, they just mentioned the National Guard, but they just want to talk about the strike squad. So he's just like, yes, they will be here at 6 a.m. And she's like, why did you choose 6 a.m. out of all times? He's like, well, I chose 6 a.m. because it's early enough that if things do not go the way that we hope, we will be able to clean it up. Whereas if we did it later in the morning or later in the day, people would talk, they would ask questions, and that's not something that we need right now. And so Simone was like, okay, yeah, I get that. That's cool. But when it comes to this moment, I need you to promise me something. He was like, what? She said, I need you to promise me that you will not freeze up. Eli's like, freeze up? What are you talking about, freeze up? Like, what are you talking about? She was like, Eli. He was like, Simone, what are you talking about? I don't freeze up. And she was like, well, you froze up at the debate. You froze up when I was in labor. And you froze up on other times. Like, you are just a person that, when it comes to stressful situations, you freeze up. And so I'm just fearful that in this moment, once you become face to face with Hunter, that you may freeze up. And so I'm just trying to give you some words of encouragement to prevent that from happening. And he's just like, what are you talking about? I do not freeze up, like you are crazy. And she's like, listen, regardless if you believe that you do or do not freeze up, I'm just trying to give you some advice, because if you do freeze up in this moment, you may not be around too much longer. So I'm just trying to help you out. I just want to make sure that you live. So he's like, so are you saying that you believe that I am unfit for the job and unfit for the task? And she's like, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the way that you behave sometimes makes it appear as if you are unfit for the job and for the task. I think you are fit for it, but sometimes the way that you act, it just makes it seem like you are not ready for this moment. The two of them begin to argue, and then Eli actually brings up Bobby, and y'all, our girl Simone, she was a little flustered, I cannot lie. And she says, fuck you. And he was like, oh, so I had the nerve, didn't I? And y'all, this was the time when Eli decided to be super petty. So he calls Max into the room, and then he tells Max to get Bobby. And so Bobby does come into the room, and then he says, Bobby, I need you to do two things for me. Number one, I need you to take my wife home. And number two, I want you to fuck her once you get her home. So of course Simone's like, what the fuck? Are you really doing this right now? So she actually goes up and she smacks him, and then she leaves. After this, Eli and Bobby, they actually get into it a little bit. So Bobby actually puffs his chest up and starts talking crazy to Eli. Eli's like, who the fuck you think you're talking to? And he's like, listen to me. I told you before, but I'll tell you again. I did not fuck your wife. I'm not currently fucking your wife. I wish you would stop saying that. And then he goes on to say that he feels like Eli has been disrespecting him, disrespecting Simone, and disrespecting his professionalism. He was like, professionalism? Bro, you were fucking my wife. What are you talking about professionalism? He said, once again, I'm not fucking your wife. So the two of them, they do go back and forth for a little while longer. And Eli eventually is like, you know what? Get the fuck out of my office. And he's like, you know what? Gladly. After this scene, the show is slowed down dramatically. There were a lot of filler scenes. So, for example, the scene that happened with Simone, Priscilla, Bobby, and Lily, where they were talking about their sex lives and how they are pretty much like intertwined, scene lasted way too long. I tuned it out. I won't be able to go into detail about it. I'm sorry. And then even when it comes to the situation where Dale reached out to Alan to see if he could spend the night, and then we found out that Kyle was listening in onto his phone conversation, it was just like, okay, I mean, I guess. And then when it comes to Donald, he actually ends up coming into the room. Him and Alan, they kind of go back and forth a little bit. He ends up telling Alan that he can leave early. And then this is when he tells Kyle about Eli's plans to send in the strike squad. And so that is the only thing that kind of came out of it storyline wise. But like I said, it was a lot of filler in that section. So we're just going to move on. Sam goes to the police station to talk to Richard. And this part kind of threw me off because Sam was able to take the handcuffs off of Richard, but I was just like, wait a minute. If we go back to the last episode, remember Sam, he kind of tried to throw his weight around a little bit, and the police officer told him to stay in his lane. This has nothing to do with him. Yet in this episode, he was able to take the handcuffs off of Richard. I thought that was kind of weird. Richard tells Sam that he needs to do whatever it is that he needs to do to get him out of that situation, regardless how severe it is. And he says, you know, if I do what you want me to do, if I press the red button, there's no coming back from this. And Richard's like, listen, I do not care. Do what you need to do. And so Richard's like, okay, I got you. And it's like, remember, if I do go down for this, it's going to blow back on you. So you need to make sure you do everything you can to get this done. And so Sam was like, I got you. Sam ends up walking out of the room that Richard is in, and we actually see that Sharon and Nancy are actually in the waiting area. And so as they are waiting, the DA, well, the assistant DA actually comes out and says, you know what, I'm ready to speak with you. And so Nancy's like, can Sharon come with me? And she was like, who is she? And she's like, oh, she's a family friend. She was like, okay, that's fine. And y'all, the DA, she was not with the shit. Like, she was on Nancy's ass from the beginning. She was not fucking around. She was not trying to hear anything. Nancy was trying to explain to her, like, you know what, he choked me. Do you see the bruises? She's like, I don't see shit. I said, well, damn, that's fucked up. She was like, and he stabbed his father. And she was like, you know what, I'm glad you brought him up. So when it comes to Richard and his father, from what I've been told, they had issues. Do you know why they had issues? And she was like, does it matter? She was like, yes, it does. She was like, why does it matter? She was like, well, the reason why it matters is because we found your DNA on his father's drawers. And I said, oh, shit. The assistant DA ends up picking up her phone and giving the phone to Nancy. And she's like, look at these videos. And so I'm not sure if the videos were of them having sex. I'm not really sure. They did not show us on the screen. But apparently it was really bad because even Sharon was looking at it like, oh my God. And then next thing you know, she's like, you know what, Nancy, you were under arrest. And then the cop comes in and they arrest her. And I was just like, damn, this is crazy. And that was the end of the episode. Thank you all so much for watching. In regards to the second half of the season, I do plan to review the second half. In fact, I'm looking at the TV guide. It appears that they're going to show episodes 12 and 11. So we're going to get 2 episodes. Either way it goes, I am going to review and I am going to get them up as soon as possible. If you could, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Would be great. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye.